الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue in this great book entitled Buloogh al-Maraam by the great Imam Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, the one who died 856 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Well, the time now is 7:25 p.m. Saturday, August the 17th, 2024, which agrees with the Islamic date, currently the 13th of Safar, the year 1446, the year 1446, after the migration of our Prophet ﷺ, on this evening of Saturday. As we finalize a lot of the affairs connected with marriage, and we ended the explanation of the different types of invalid marriages in Islam, as we covered them with al-hamd. So now we embark upon the new chapter, everyone, which is entitled, if you look in your books, and it's in the chapter of Kitab al-Nikah. However, you'll find that it's a subtitle or sub-lesson under the same exact chapter. You'll find that it's called Bab Kafa'a wal Khiyar, the chapter of sufficiency and adequacy in Islam. Sufficiency or adequacy, or you could say the choice. Al-Khiyar. As al-Khiyar means alternative or choice. So that's the new chapter that we'll start, inshallah, as we wind down and completing this chapter, walillahi alhamd, as we arrived to the end part of it. And you'll find that the great A'immah, that they mention this affair due to the fact that you'll find that there's a lot of warped ideas and a lot of different types of cultural practices that have nothing to do with the religion. And you'll find that it is utilized to look down upon certain individuals and that they don't deserve certain privileges as a result of certain affairs. From them, for example, lineage, or whether they be tribal, or they be from the Arab or non-Arab. And you'll find that certain people, due to the lack of knowledge, come in, and as a result of it, these practices, they cause not only just a warped understanding concerning the religion, but it also brings forth what they call tashwih, sum'at al-Islam. That it brings a distorted appearance about Islam. Let me see, give me your book, Sheikh Sharif. Did you find it? Yeah, that's it, right there. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it. So based upon that, everyone, you'll find that the ulama now took the initiative to explain these matters in detail in order to clarify to the Muslims generally of what is from the religion and what is not from the religion. What agrees with the Kitab al-Sunnah and what the Kitab al-Sunnah rejects. Not making it a stipulation. Some of these affairs that we'll speak about, inshallah, for example, is it permissible for an Arab to marry a non-Arab? Or is it a stipulation that you have to come from a certain lineage? Or is it a stipulation that you have to be hur, that you have to be free or liberated? And that a liberated one cannot marry, for example, a slave. So you'll find that this chapter explains all those affairs and puts it in its proper perspective. Because like we said, these affairs are very important, and it's incumbent upon a Muslim to educate themselves in these matters so that they not become deluded to think that Islam is a religion of discrimination, or it's a religion that looks down upon individuals, or it's a religion, for example, that comes and condemns people based upon certain backgrounds or certain tribes or color or whatever. And that as a result of it, they don't deserve certain privileges. And like I just gave an example in regards to an Arab marrying a non-Arab. And like we talked about, all those matters will clarify within this chapter. So you'll find that Ahl-Ilm, for example, they call it al-Kafa'a. Al-Kafa'a. Al-Kafa'a means sufficiency or adequacy. al-kafa'a. Well, kafa'a, everyone, as we'll talk about inshallah, it is equality or al-musawa بين الزوجين في أمور يأتي بيانها inshallah. As you'll find a great Imam Sheikh Salih Fawzan, and there's other details we'll present about this word kafa'a. It is equality or making equal between the two spouses in certain matters, which clarification will come. So, certain affairs as human beings, they're equal in, as we'll talk about. In certain affairs, they're not. There's certain affairs, for example, the men are to pray in Jama'ah. They pray in congregation and attend the masjid. Do the women have to do that? No, they don't. Women do not have to pray what? In Jama'ah. So, Islam came to put everything in its proper place. Not to make them equal in everything. But in a lot of the ahkam of Islam, they are equal. For example, it's incumbent upon a woman to pray 5 times a day, and a man likewise has to pray what? 5 times a day. A man has to fast the month of Ramadan, likewise a woman has to what? Fast the month of Ramadan. But there are certain affairs that they don't, that they're not equal in. Like we said, for example, the aspect of spending and earnings are upon who? It's upon the man. It's upon the man to go and work and attain provisions. Is it upon the woman to do that? We're talking about this Islamic hukum. We're not talking about the predicament of certain countries. We're talking about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. The nafaqah is upon who? The man. Does a woman have to go out and work? No. Okay, let's stick to the text. Good. Also, a man has to pray what? 5 times a day. 5 times a day where? In the masjid. Does a woman have to do that? No, they don't. A man has to attend Jumu'ah. It's obligatory. A woman have to attend Jumu'ah? No, they don't. You understand, everyone? Is it clear? Yeah. So certain affairs they are equal in, and certain affairs what? They aren't equal in. Rather, Islam came to put everything in its proper what? Its proper what? Its proper perspective and proper place. However, what we're speaking about now has nothing to do with those affairs. Keep in mind that the affair of kafa'ah is speaking about what, everyone? It's speaking about marriage. So keep that in mind. The topic, keep in mind the great Imam al-Hafid ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, that he made this a sub-topic under the main topic, which is Kitab al-Nikah. The main topic is what? The chapter of what, everyone? Marriage. The subtitle under that, or the subchapter under that, is what? Kafa'ah. Kafa'ah. Kafa'ah means sufficiency, adequacy, or choice in Islam. And a person, like I said, I know the questions are going to come. Well, Abdul Razak, we know the economy is bad, and women, we live in a country where we live in a country, we're not talking about certain instances. We're talking about the asl. We're talking about the origin. One person attaining provisions for a household is not enough in these days because we live in America, to the end of it. We'll talk about that later. I'm talking about the asl, the origin. The origin. So we'll talk about that, like we said, when it comes, inshallah. Don't worry. Right. So the affair of kafa'ah, like we said, kafa'ah means in marriage, in nikah, is equality between both spouses, the wife and the husband. So we're not talking about those matters we just gave examples of a moment ago. We're talking about the affairs connected with what now? Marriage. Right. So that's the meaning of the word kafa'ah. Kafa'ah. Right. You have the word al-khiyar, choice, or alternative. Khiyar. Khiyar means what? Choice. Or it means alternative. Or option. Is it clear? طيب. You'll find that Ahl al-Ilm that they say about this, طلب وهو طلب خير الأمرين من إمضاء عقد النكاح أو فسخه لأسبابه يأتي بيانها إن شاء الله. It is to seek the best of two choices or two affairs. That's what the word khiyar means in this chapter. Either by continuing the marriage contract or faskhihi, or nullifying it, or fasq. Fasq means to nullify, or to fasq also means to a dissolvement of the marriage contract. So either to continue the marriage contract or to what? Cancel it out. So that's basically what the affair of choice is speaking about in marriage. Something that would necessitate where one could continue the marriage contract or whatever you want, or have the option to what? To nullify it. So that's what we're speaking about in this chapter. Is it clear, everyone, so far? طيب. You'll find that the affair pertaining to kafa'ah, like we mentioned, for example, this is just to give some type of example. Don't write this down yet. For example, a person having adequacy in religion. Adequacy and sufficiency in religion. What they call kufu laha or kufu'un lahu. Where a person is adequate for him, or the person is adequate for what? For her. So you find Ahl-Ilm say in Arabic, laysa kufu'an laha, or laysa kufu lahu. He's not suffice, or he's not sufficient for what? Or she is not sufficient for him, and she or he is not sufficient for what? Her. But however, the question is, everyone, in what? In what? Is it in lineage? Is it in religion? Is it in color, background, or the fact that they come from a tribe, or Arab, or non-Arab? So those are the affairs that we'll speak about. Is it clear? But the affair, for example, let's just take an example. Don't write nothing down. For example, adequacy in religion. Adequacy in religion. As we know, a Muslim woman cannot marry a what? A kafir. A disbeliever, or person that's not from her religion, or person that's not practicing her religion, by the agreement of the Muslims. And that's by what Allah has mentioned in His book. As the ayah comes to Surah Al-Mumtahina, فَإِنْ عَلِمْتُمُوهُنْ فَلَا تَعْفُوَانْ فَإِنْ عَلِمْتُمُوهُنَّ مُؤْمِنَاتٍ فَلَا تَرْجِعُوهُنَّ إِلَى الْكُفَّارِ لَا هُنَّ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ وَلَا هُمْ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ عفوا وَلَا هُمْ يَحِلُّونَ لَهُنْ, as it says in the ayah. He says, if you know the women to be believers, believing women, do not return them back to the disbelievers, meaning the disbelieving men. They are not lawful for them, and they are not lawful for what? For the women. So that's an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that in order for a marriage to be valid, there has to be adequacy in the aspect of what? Religion. There has to be adequacy and sufficiency in religion. Now we know Allah has made the opposite, meaning He made an exception to this, where a Muslim man can marry a what? A woman, from a disbelieving woman, only from where? From the people of the book. But that's with the conditions that we'll mention, inshallah. That's with certain conditions. Even though the great Imam al-Albani explained this in some great detail, saying that does not apply for the women of the book these days. Not these days. The women that I'm sure you're familiar with, or what you see of indecency in their physical nature, and in their speech, and in their dress, and in their belief. As far as in them not believing that chastity nor sex before marriage is unlawful. As you'll find that the condition is ihsan. As we'll talk about that inshallah. Ihsan means them believing firmly and preserving their chastity before marriage. That's why it says in the ayah, muhsanat غير مسافحات. Let's go back to the first part of the ayah. وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ. This is in the second page of Surah Al-Ma'idah. It's in the second page. At the bottom, towards the bottom of the page of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Notice I'm not saying muhsanat. That's a word from the word ihsan. Chastity. And preservation of one's what? Chastity. Meaning, before what? Marriage, and most definitely for sure in a marriage. But anyway, it says, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتِ, chaste women, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, from the believing women. وَالْمُحْصَنَاتِ, chaste women, مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ إِذَا آتَيْتُمُوهُنْ أُجُورَهُنْ مُحْصِنِينَ. Here's the ihsan again. Allah mentioned it again. غَيْرُ مُسَافِحِينَ وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانِ. As it says in the ayah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, notice He mentioned ihsan 4 times to let you know the importance of what, everyone? Chastity. A modesty. Chastity in a woman, believing firmly that what it is binding upon her to what? To be a chaste, modest woman. So it says, marry the modest women from the believing women. And the modest women from the women that was given a book, from those before you, if you give them their ujur, meaning their dowry. Muhsinin, again, seeking to be chaste yourself. Not musafihin, not seeking to be immoral or doing something indecent before the marriage or the marriage contract. Muhsinin ghayr musafihin. Wala muttakhidi. Now listen to the last part of that. Not taking them as boyfriends or girlfriends. Wala muttakhidi akhdan. Not taking them as akhdan. Akhdan or khadan means sadiq or ashiq. Means sadiq, means friend. Not taking them as akhdan. So, notice it says in the ayah, ihsan. Ihsan is what, everyone? Chastity and modesty. Majority of the women outside, the way they look, and the way when they dress, and the way they speak, and the way they act, and the way in their belief, they do not have the belief of what? That modesty and guarding their chastity is something what? There's something that's part of the religion. Rather, they think that's not befitting for these days for me to be modest. Rather, it's befitting that I be what? Indecent and immoral. And be an unchaste woman and show my body to anyone. And show my adornments and my beauty to anyone who sees it. If they want to see it, have a good day. Have enjoyment. Look at me. So, those type of affairs you'll find that the great Imam al-Albani has mentioned and said to let one know completely that those affairs are not applicable for the women of the book what? These days. They're not applicable. And in addition, he said to the affair of the danger of the children, especially in the lands of the kuffar, especially in the lands of the disbelievers, especially in the lands of the disbelievers, where the lands of the disbelievers, everyone, your children, if the woman is in that state of where she's not chaste or she's not chaste, rather, she's like these women that listen to the rap music and emulate them and emulate the indecency, and they don't believe anything is wrong with fornication. Rather, you'll find that they raise the bar. There's nothing wrong with being a lesbian. And we can even do things openly with lesbian women, openly. Do you really think that this is a woman that this ayat applies to? Really? You understand, everyone? This is absolute indecency. She's a modest woman. Modest woman that Imam al-Albani even mentioned on the recording. It's a 2-part recording. He breaks this masala down in such great detail until it's like in your mind, of course that doesn't apply these days for these type of women. Doesn't apply. He's saying here, number 1, he says, how many from the women of the book that you meet today that they really think that chastity and modesty is important in regards to their dress, how they conduct, how they act, and in their belief? If you was to ask the majority of them, especially the women that come from the West, do you believe that fornication and intimacy before the marriage, do you believe it firmly to be forbidden? Majority of them is saying, I don't think so. Everybody does it, and that's what the days we live in. Everybody do what they do. Those affairs, like we said, it starts with the i'tiqad, of course, the belief. The woman that you marry has to believe in their belief that guarding your modesty and chastity is of the utmost importance, and that violating that is considered from those very what? Detrimental affairs and very, very deplorable, meaning dispraiseworthy. So, that's number 1. Number 2, you'll find the great Imam al-Albani also mentioned. He's fine here. Number 2, you'll find the great Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah, about the women of the book. He said, how many from the women, if you go back to some of the companions that did marry from the people of the book, you'll find Ibn al-Khattab, number 1, he said for them to marry the Muslim women first, to look for a Muslim woman. And in addition to what he said, during the time, the dominating factor and the driving force and influence in the land was what? After the Hijrah, of course, after the message of Allah and the conquest. The dominating influence was what? It was Islam. So for man now is to marry a woman from the book and she has children, the influence of the husband, in addition to the influence of what? Of the land she was in, played a major part in the influence of the children in regards to what will be their what? Their religion. So now if he says switch it, go to the West. If you now have children by a non-Muslim woman in a non-Muslim land where it's ran by a Taghut system called democracy and all that other nonsense, and she has children by you, she knows in her mind that I can what? Go to the law, take your children away from you, and make them all Christians. And what will you be able to do about it? Nothing. Why? Because it's her right. Everyone has their what? Free liberation to choose what they want. Isn't that how the land is ran here? Yes, it is. And as a result of it, your children will be what? More than likely influenced by disbelief and going down that road. Is it clear, everyone? So that's the reason why he said, Rahimallah. He gave more he goes into very great length. He's saying about the affairs of the conditions of these matters. About the matters pertaining to what, everyone? About marrying a woman from the people of the book. And in addition to that, how many from those women, he said that you marry from the West, that she is really, really going to now marry you without being intimate. Without being intimate till after the marriage. He said a lot of them do not do that. They want, and if you are intimate with them, that removes the condition of what? Chastity is gone. Because you were intimate with her before what? The marriage. So not only was she unchaste, but you even fell into it with her. You understand? So those are the matters you'll find, like we said, in regards to why the marrying the women of the book, he says, of these days. But if the women return back to what you'll find, there are Christian women, certain sects from amongst them, that they believe sex before the marriage is unlawful, and they dress very modest. And I don't think everyone's familiar with those type of Christians, or those type of Christian women and Jew women that cover, are modest, and believe in guarding their chastity and guarding their what? Their modesty. So those are the different examples that we want to speak about, inshallah. But that's just to give a muqaddimah. طيب. So that is the matter we wanted to start off with from certain conditions. طيب. So kafa'a, everyone, you'll find that Al-Ilm summarize it, the affair of kafa'a. Kafa'a means what, everyone, again? What does it mean? Sufficiency or adequacy. Excuse me. كفاءة في خمسة أشياء. Adequacy is in what? 5 affairs. Number 1, we just gave an example of, in deen, religion. Religion. So there has to be kafa'a fi deen. So we talked about the affairs of marrying a woman from the people of the book. We just gave the details of that. We say it's permissible, but what? For the men, not for the women, Muslim women, not to marry disbelieving men. طيب. The affair, like we said, as far as fisk and things pertaining to that, those matters will come. For example, what disqualifies a man to marrying a Muslim woman, or what qualifies him? Number 1, for example, adequacy in religion. Of course, adequacy in religion on both sides. Where both of them are praying what? 5 times a day. And if a person is not praying 5 times a day, then she's not adequate for him. And if he's not praying 5 times a day, he's not what? Adequate for her. Laysa kufu'an laha. She's not kufu. He's not kufu for her. He's not suffice, or is not sufficient for her. And if she's not, then she's not what? Sufficient for him. And that's just an example. But there's more examples than that. A person might say, what about fisk? What about sin? It depends on what it is, and we'll talk about it. And it's certain conditions for it. Certain conditions. That's what we'll talk about. We'll give the examples of it. But the fisk we're talking about is not like, for example, homosexuality on those type of levels. But it's something else. I'll talk about that, and the person might say, what are you talking about? We will talk about it. Don't worry. طيب. Thani, the second, is equality or adequacy between both spouses in hurriya, in freeness or liberation. Meaning that he has to be free. Can a free man marry, for example, a concubine or female slave, or vice versa. We'll talk about that. The details are going to come. Just mention this generally. That's number 2. Number 3 is there have to be equality between 2 spouses in lineage. في النسب. You writing this down? In nasab. It's number 3. Do they have to be equal in lineage? Just kind of rhetorical. You don't have to just write it down. We'll give the answers, inshallah. Number 4, al-musawa bayn az-zawjayn fi al-hirfa. The equality between the 2 spouses in occupation or profession, rather. Hirfa. Hirfa is like ihtiraf, something that a person is good at, such as a profession or occupation, or the type of job they do. It's number 4, what they call al-rabi' al-musawa bayn az-zawjayn fi al-hirfa. Fi al-hirfa. They have to be equal or adequate in the affair of hirfa. Hirfa is like a profession or what? Occupation. Rather, hirfa is more, to be exact, a profession. Al-khamis, what they call in yasar. In yasar. Equality in them as far as in provisions or yasar. In provisions and things pertaining to that. Like for example, yasar. Ya, sin, alif, ra. Ya, sin, alif, ra. Yasar. Yasar. Yasar meaning, can a man that's impoverished marry a rich woman, for example? Or the opposite, whatever. Whether he's adequate for her, or she's adequate for him, or what have you. So we'll talk about that, inshallah. طيب. As far as the first matter in regards to religion, this is what we just gave some details on. So number 1, let's go back to number 1. Number 1 is pertaining to what everyone? Religion, deen. We know that it's a consensus amongst Ahl Ilm that it's not permissible for a Muslim man to marry a kafir woman except from the people of the book. And we just talked about this in detail a couple of moments ago. We gave this and explained it in thorough detail, inshallah. So a Muslim man can only marry outside his religion unless it's from the woman of what? Of what, everyone? The book. And we talked about the details of that. We talked about that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that clear in his book. وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ. So now, can a Muslim man marry a what? Buddhist woman? No. Can he marry, for example, a Shuyu'i, a communist woman, a Marxist woman, a woman that's, for example, that practices Jainism or Buddhism, or she's a monk, or what have you, or any of those other type of what? Beliefs. All of those matters are what? Unlawful for the Muslim man. He cannot marry what? A mushrika. He cannot marry a polytheist woman at all. Is it clear, everyone? As we know the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 221. وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ. Do not marry the polytheist women until what? Until she believes. And the ayah that we mentioned Surah Al-Ma'idah a moment ago, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُحْصَنَاتِ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ إِذَا آتَيْتُمُوهُنْ أُجُورَهُنْ. We just said this a moment ago. The chaste women from where? The people of the book. So, that affair is only for what, everyone? Again, to believe in women, the chaste women from the people of the book. So that matter that's pertaining to the exception that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave is only for who? From the believing women, and who? The women from the what? Book. Outside of that, is it permissible or not? So a Muslim man cannot marry a mushrikah. He cannot marry a polytheist woman. So that is from the examples in regards to what? In regards to what they call adequacy. That's just one of them. We're going to get into the other ones in a minute. So, al-afifat, chastity in regards to the affairs pertaining to the people of the book. Now the opposite was pertaining to the Muslim woman. The Muslim woman can only marry what, everyone? A Muslim man. Can she marry a man from the people of the book? No, she can't. Or a Yahudi, or Nasrani, Hindu, from the Hindus or the Hindokes, for anyone. Can she marry him? No, she cannot. Also, you'll find even that in that affair, you'll find that Ahl Ilm say that the origin of marrying a woman from the people of the book is also dangerous. You'll find that, like we said, the stipulations. For example, you'll find the athar of some of the Salaf about the man who wanted to marry a Muslim or non-Muslim female from the people of the book. To let you know, it's dangerous. For example, you'll find that there's an athar. Wow. There's an athar where it says, there's a man that was a mu'adhin. So he was a person that called the adhan, just like we're about to do now. صعد المنارة فوجد على أحد السطوح امرأة نصرانية. There was a man that he was a mu'adhin, and he climbed upon the manara, upon one of the roofs where there was a what? There was a roof where there was a Christian woman. She was very beautiful. And it says in the narration, فَأَخَذَتْ بِلُبِّهِ فَأَرْسَلَ إِلَيْهَا يَخْطُبُهَا فَأَبَتْ إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ نَصْرَانِيًا. Now listen to this. Not only was she evil, but she was very what? She was very smart. Listen to this narration. So it says, نعوذ بالله فحاول فقالت لا يمكن إلا أن تكون نصرانيا فتنصر هذا الرجل. تنصر, became Christian. I'll explain in a minute. Now listen what she said to him. قالت له إنك بعت دينك بشيء رخيص فتبيعني بأرخص لا حاجة لي فيك. فصار مرتدا عن الإسلام ولم يحصل له مقصوده. So you'll find, so now when he seen her beauty, he was captivated. It says فأخذت بلبه. Her beauty had what? Captivated his mind. Took him out of his mind, how beautiful she was, right? So then he sent for her that he would what? Approach her for marriage, for marital engagement, for a khitbah. She refused for the marital engagement, except at the conditions that he becomes a what? Christian. So he wanted to do it. For how? So he said again, no, come and become what? Become Muslim. She said, no, I will not do it. I'll do it only if you become Christian. He became Christian. Listen to what she said to him. She said, you now sold your religion for something cheap. In that case, you would sell me for something cheaper. I have no need for you. So he became apostated from Islam, and what he intended did not carry out. Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? طيب. So you'll find in that particular instance, so adequacy in a religion is paramount. Adequacy in religion. But the origin to marry a woman from the book is what, everyone? Is hated, except in the instance, like we said, in which you'll find the great Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah, made those exceptions, and that they have to have those conditions. Or else the affair could be what? Dangerous upon a person, especially these days and times. Because decency and modesty and chastity in these women, especially the women of the book of these days, as if it doesn't even exist. Rather, you'll find that they look down upon that. Rather, the affair, what is praiseworthy, is to show yourself and display yourself in a very dishonorable manner. Where you'll find that they what? Intermingle, and a woman is showing her adornments, her body, her physical, wearing all types of things that are very tempting in her dress, which all goes against what, everyone? Modesty and chastity. And I'm sure that people who know from before Islam how it was when they gathered in the church, and what women used to dress and how they used to dress next to you, and the perfume and the enticement and the different types of things that they will wear in order to so-called attract a what? A man. Which all goes against what, everyone? All goes against the affairs of what? Shyness, chastity, and modesty. All of it. So those are the affairs of what we want to clarify, especially in this particular matter. So that's the first thing. So as far as in religion, that's the affair that's hated. طيب. Mukafa'a, or they call mukafa'at ad-din al-Muslim. Well, we are just talking about that, alhamdulillah. For example, as far as in regards to what they call al-kafa'a fil adala. Al-kafa'a fil adala. Adequacy in what? Uprightness. That we'll give a little bit more details next class, inshallah. They call it al-kafa'a fil adala. Wal-adala al-murad biha al-istiqama fi ad-din. However, the affair of adala, what is agreed upon is that a Muslim man cannot be married off to a woman that does not pray. They have to pray 5 times a day. The man has to pray 5 times a day, and the woman has to pray 5 times a day. Is it clear, everyone? You cannot marry a Muslim man that's not praying 5 times a day to a woman that's not praying 5 times a day. Is it clear? Why? إذا كان مثلا تارك الصلاة ليس كفؤا لها لأنها محافظة على الصلوات الخمس. Is it clear? So, that affair of kafa'ah, of adequacy, plays a part as far as where everyone? Religion. In religion. So, both have to be praying what, everyone? Both sides have to be praying what? 5 times a day. If one of them are not praying 5 times a day, she's not adequate for him. And if he's not praying 5 times a day, then what, everyone? Salam. Is it clear? So that's what we mentioned as far as in al-adala. Al-adala. But what we mentioned, everyone, al-adala, laha ma'nayan. Minha al-istiqama. Al-istiqama ala ta'ati Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Regards to the word adala. And adala is connected with what? Deen. Sufficiency in religion. Is it a prerequisite in uprightness? We talked about al-adala. Al-adala here means uprightness. The context here means uprightness. Those matters we'll talk about in detail next week, inshallah, because that's has a little bit more details in it. But we just gave one example. For example, what everyone? As far as the person observing what? The prayer, the salawat al-khams. The salawat al-khams, the 5 prayers. That establishes his or her what everyone? Uprightness. Is it clear? Al-adala. So they both have to be what? Prayed 5 times a day. If not, it infringes upon what everyone? Their adala. Or if you want to say, generally, it infringes upon their what? Their religion, their deen. Yukhil bid-deen. So in that instance, هل هو كفء لها or هل هي كفؤة له? Is he sufficient for her if he abandoned the prayer? No. طيب. What about some of the prayers? If he abandoned some of the prayers. So in the instance of abandoning all the prayers, we know that it's extremely dangerous to take the position, of course, a person is murtad, هذا أشبه or هذا أظهر. The person has abandoned Islam. But in regards to the person that's abandoned some of the prayers, in that instance, he's a what? Fasiq. If he abandons some of the prayers, huwa fasiq. It's a sinner. If she's praying 5 times a day, and he's praying some of the prayers, is he adequate for her? Everyone? No. Laysa kufu'an laha. Fahimtum? He's not kufu. Alright, what if he's praying 5 times a day, and she's praying what? Some of the prayers. Let's just say 2 of the prayers a day, or 3 prayers. In that instance, she's considered what, everyone? Fasiqah. In that instance, she's a sinner. That type of fisq infringes upon what, everyone? Adala. Ahsant. Yaqdah fil adala. That infringes upon uprightness. And if you want to say generally, it infringes upon also their what? Their religion. Not necessarily that they abandon the religion, but they're considered from the major sinners, especially in the aspect of fisq. Especially in the aspect of what? Fisq, of sin. In that instance, she's not sufficient for what? She's not sufficient for him due to the fact that she's not adequate in religion. Is it clear? She's not adequate in what? In religion. And as a result, يَقْدَحْ فِي عَدَالَتِهَا وَفِي اسْتِقَامَتِهَا. It infringes upon her uprightness. And if you want to say generally, it infringes upon what? The religion. It infringes upon the religion. So those are the affairs pertaining to what? Kafa'ah in Islam, that we're going to talk about. But that's just the first topic, which is there has to be adequacy and sufficiency in where everyone? In deen, in religion. And we talked about the details of that as regards to the Muslim man marrying what? Non-Muslim woman, and the conditions and the details of that, which is extremely important. Because you'll find that some Muslim men have say, I can marry a woman from the book of the book. Is that easy? You think so? It's not that simple. Especially if she was your girlfriend before. Because if that was the case, it removed the condition of what? Ihsan. It removed the affair pertaining to ihsan, which is al-muhafadha al-iffa wal-hishma, which is the removal of what? Of chastity, modesty, and all those affairs connected with it. And you have removed it where that was the condition. And the other details that we mentioned in regards to that. Is it clear? So that's the reason why knowledge and the details of these matters are extremely important. Is it clear? Right. The other example we gave is what we just said. Adala. An uprightness in religion. In regards to what? The salah. Is it clear? As far as the prayer. If those affairs are not observed, then it's considered infringing upon what everyone? The deen, the religion. And in that case, he would not be sufficient for her. And if it's from her, that affair pertaining to the obligation of the prayer, which is coming up shorter, then she's not adequate for who? For him either. Is it clear? As far as the nasab, we're going to talk about the other matters, which is lineage, profession, spending or money, whether she's rich and he's not, or what have you. Is it conditions that are a prerequisite or not? All those matters we'll talk about next week. Is it clear, inshallah? We'll stop here. Any questions about the lesson? Anyone? Any questions about the lesson? Nasab. Noon sin ba. Nasab. Lineage. Nasab. We'll talk about that inshallah. There's the qurr-rajih, the strongest opinion is not a condition. It's not a condition. Nasab. We'll talk about that next class inshallah. You'll find that the Messenger of Allah married two couples off where he was not from a known lineage. And married from the Sahabiya, she was from a known family, but he wasn't. And they married each other. We'll talk about that inshallah. But the point, the affair revolves around what do we want? The religion and the istiqamah and the uprightness. That's what the affair is to consider. We'll talk about that next class inshallah. We'll talk about it. Fine, stop it. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك